Bryan, it's great to see you again at this year's 2013 CTI event, and anxious to hear about what you're announcing. So why don't we just dive in? Tell us about the CellMaps product and why you launched an application.
Jeff, we are really excited about this. This is our first real consumer-facing application that we have launched direct to the consumers ourselves. People see our work all the time and may not realize it's us, because we do drive the mapping platforms for so many companies within this industry, showing where their coverage is for their variety of services. But this is the first time that we've actually launched something directly to the consumer. It's available today on the Google Play Store, so it's for Android devices. It will work both on tablets and on handsets, of course, and we'll have an iOS version coming very soon.
What's the primary reason you launched the product, and who's going to be the primary consumer, and why would they engage with this product?
Well, I think there's a real interest in the public in general in who's the best carrier for them. Now, I think it's important to point out that who has the most coverage isn't necessarily the best carrier. There are a lot of other things that go into that. They need to pick a plan, they need to pick a handset. But ultimately, the most when it comes to coverage, the question is, does the carrier cover where I need to go? That's really what's important. And so this application will allow people to download this app, enter a place, enter an address, city and state, and go look that up on the map, and they can individually turn on the AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, and Verizon footprints, and then look at the technologies they've rolled out: 2G, 3G, 4G, and 4G LTE. Now, that may sound a little different, but of course there's been a bit of a debate in the industry on what really 4G is. We don't want to get into the debate of, what is distinctly 4G. Some people say it's only LTE. Some people say it's really just the speed, because that's all people care about. And they've got an excellent point there. So there's, within the frequently asked questions within the app, it actually shows you for each of the operators that's included what they consider to be 2G, 3G, 4G, and 4G LTE.
What makes this different from crowdsourcing technologies that are out there today?
Well, there are a lot of very good and interesting apps out there today with crowdsourcing, but I think what's distinctly different about this particular application is that it shows the entire carrier footprint. The crowdsourcing apps tend to get a fairly dense return of information from very heavily populated areas and where they've had a significant amount of participation with the downloading of their app. When you get out into the rural areas, there's often not a lot of information that's returned. Maybe a few pings along the interstate, along a major U.S. highway, you'll see some information and a scattered dot here and there. And these operators have spent billions of dollars over the last 30 years building these networks out, layering them with new technologies, and showing that as strictly in the crowdsourcing manner that's done right now is an incomplete picture of what the operators actually have to offer. Go back and show you there's 4 different buttons. You have the coverage, you have insights, which is some, I'll get to that in a moment, and an about button and a settings button. But here's the meat of it. We go to the coverage feature. You can simply tap on the map and zoom in, put your finger down and move it around. I'm going to turn on AT&T's, actually I hit the layers button. You can turn the layers off and on. When I turn on the AT&T coverage, I also have to select a technology. So let's take a look at their 3G, and that coverage fills on in. We turn on the 4G LTE, and you can see the darker colors that show up, okay? We can look at one of the other operators. Sprint has their 3G, and here's their 4G LTE, and any of these buttons can be turned on independently, but I think it's also important to point out that none of these operators actually cover the entire United States with their own network, and that they depend upon other operators also to fill in the holes. And so we also have the roaming patterns for all the operators, so you can see independently what they have launched on their own, but where you can still get service even if they don't have a network there.
So what's the benefit for a consumer? Net it out for me. Why would a consumer want to download this app and use it?
Well, I think it's a very important part of the buying decision for them. There are some coverage geeks like us in the industry that are just really curious about what's getting rolled out where. There are a lot of businesses, though, it's very important as they're traveling. They need high-speed connections. We think a lot of business travelers are going to find this app very useful. Where can I get my 4G? Where can I use my 4G card? Where can I use my 4G mobile device? Okay, as I'm traveling. Where might I have to go find some other connectivity if I have to download a large file? People get used to this very fast speed. If you have 4G, whether it be LTE or some other flavor, and you're used to getting really fast downloads, when you get into an area where it's not, you just find out how spoiled we all are, right? And so it's part of that setting expectations for the consumer that's very important. But it will let them know also as they're making a decision on who they want to buy their service from, does this operator have the kind of service I need where I need it to be? Coverage, and we'll turn on T-Mobile's coverage on top of it. So you can do a direct comparison from one operator to another with this capability. Now you can also find your current location by clicking this button here. It's a little harder to do upside down, Jeff.
I'm impressed.
Let me go here. We'll find an address. Let's go to, say, Sioux City, Iowa. And then you can tap this. Let me do it I'm doing it upside down here. There's just nothing quite like a live demo, is there?
Well, I think it's important to note as you're doing this live demo, you talk about the amount of data that's being used to run this application. It's you're running it in the cloud versus locally installing all the data on a person's computer. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is actually coming live over the network. So if we've had any interference in here, then it can slow the speed down a little bit, just like anything else.
Sure.
2G, 3G, 4G, and 4G LTE. Where it's within their coverage area, where it's a roaming coverage area, and where it's outside their coverage area, where they can't offer any service at all.